Hi, I'm Sarah Cowgill, along with Andrew Burrian, Dave Patterson, Graham Noble, and John Clark. And this is the Conservative Five, an online TV production of Liberty Nation News. On today's episode, Seeing into the Future, Cabinet Agendas for 100, Alex will give us some great insight on how this cabinet will be much different than 2016. Donald Trump will be making his move to kickstart 2025 with energy. We'll chat about his economic plans and drill, baby, drill. And panel will discuss the push to eliminate one cabinet agency in Department of Education departing. Finally, it's another quick fix to flex the brain in Just for Fun, Volume 60. All this and more coming up in this edition of the Conservative Five. Now that the dust has all but settled on election 2024, we're going to take a look at cabinet picks and the potential power they will yield. Let's face it, Mike Davis, an ally of President-elect Donald Trump, warned New York Attorney General Letitia James to not pursue any legal action against Trump during his second term, threatening to send her to prison if she does. So, that's pretty clear. You know, we know Susie Wiles has earned her place as the first woman chief of staff, and she will be formidable. And there are others waiting to be dialed up. But I want to know, are we going to see a revenge plan play out here, Graham, or business as usual?
Well, that would depend, Sarah, on how you look at it. The fact that any sitting president or any sitting elected official would be targeted so relentlessly and by so many different government departments and agencies and state level people, district attorneys going after him. And what happened to Trump, and if it happened to any other politician, it would be just as despicable. And the thing is, this kind of thing shouldn't be allowed to happen again. It was un-American. It was undemocratic. It was completely against the spirit of this country, and it was dreadful.
Dave, where do you see Houtland and the lack of border support?
So obviously, I think the Governor Noem's mandate is to close the border, and she will. I think because she has Thomas Homan, the senior immigration officer under Trump 45, and he's going to make sure that happens. I mean, he has come out of the gate running, and he is not going to be denied. We also hear, as an interesting aside, that when President-elect Trump became President-elect Trump, that the Border Patrol boots on the ground were cheering, and there was great joy among them. The real challenge here, though, Sarah, is that there's going to be a lot of reprogramming of money that's going to have to take place. And what you're doing is you're going to take money from providing for the health and welfare and keeping of illegal aliens and change to fortifying the Border Patrol to keep illegals out. And that's not going to happen instantly. And so there's going to be some lag time here. But I'm pretty sure that what President-elect Trump has in mind with regard to keeping illegals out and deporting those that are the worst of the criminals and rapists, and also nobody has mentioned yet the nearly 2 million gotaways, among whom there are a community of Chinese illegals, and we have no idea what they're doing. So I think that those communities are the ones that are going to be helped out of the United States rather quickly.
And I hate this term. I absolutely hate this term. Lawfare. Come on. Anyway, but there's talk about ending lawfare. Hopefully nobody's talking about reusing lawfare against their enemies. I haven't heard that. Andrew, who's on the chopping block when it comes to weaponizing the government?
Well, as Liberty Nation News reported shortly after the news broke, and within minutes on Liberty Nation's X account, Special Counsel Jack Smith, the report said that he was stepping down before Inauguration Day. So that's probably one name. So far, the picks that he has suggest that the lack of enthusiasm is not going to really result in draining the swamp. It seems like they're the exact same picks. Now, one thing I would say, though, is that for me, at least anyway, it's not so much who is on the chopping block, rather what is on the chopping block. You know, Trump, he announced on November 12th the formation of DOGE, or the Department of Government Efficiency, and it's going to be headed by Elon Musk and Howard Lutnick, who's the co-chair of the Trump-Vance transition team. And I'm skeptical of DOGE because it's seen as not going to be an official department, but more of a think tank that's going to advise the administration. But if they follow through on $2 trillion of spending cuts and cutting all that waste, then it could result in perhaps draining a part of the swamp. But when it comes to personnel, the picks aren't really you can't really make it the average MAGA supporter or America First person to be enthusiastic about it.
I'm a fan of this guy, RFK Jr., and have been for a while. But where is he in all these cabinet talks? I mean, he's calm, cool, and collected. But Trump said, and this is what made me go, ooh, he would turn him loose. John Clark, what's going on there?
Well, that's the sleeping elephant in the living room, I suppose. And addressing the broader issues raised here, I don't sense in what's going on, actually, that there is a payback effort going on against individuals. There is a payback effort going on to vindicate policies by this administration. And that includes Bobby Kennedy. What we see right away is, Trump was portrayed as going to be a fascist, and he's bringing in women in unprecedented positions. I think Department of Homeland Security now, I read as well. People of color. He's coming in with people with credentials to implement a very specific list of campaign policies that he made. This is more like one would expect any transition of a presidency to unfold. I don't sense that there's an effort at payback, though there will be. Perhaps Jack Smith and others in some of the mainstream media are already paying the price in the market of ideas for what they've done. And Bobby Kennedy has been given a mandate to have a lot of influence over Health and Human Services and USDA and perhaps EPA and FDA around food. And those are policies that I think that's the theme we see, that this is an administration that wants to get right to work and show the American people that it's going to get to work. And it's bringing in a lot of outsiders to do so. And certainly Bobby Kennedy, I think, fits that description of outsiders. But it's about policies more than people. If there's a retribution, it's against bad policies, we must hope.
Well, I'm excited to see what's going to happen here. I don't know what else to say. It's just there's so many things going on here and there, and we're trying to keep up with it and trying to keep all of you people in the loop, all of our viewers, and we will every step of the way. So thank you for watching us today, and thank my panel of geniuses that have been on to explain this crazy election 2024 and the fallout. There's about to be a new sheriff in town come January 20th, and a lot of people are asking what's in store, like, will fuel prices drop? Will groceries be affordable again? Then what should we brace for if something else is coming at us down the pike? We briefly discussed on election night the movement in the betting markets, stock prices fluctuating, and the sense of economic relief. I said sense of. Information coming out seems promising, but for the everyday people out there with depleted savings accounts and living paycheck to paycheck, Andrew, what can the middle class expect, and when can they expect it?
Well, I mean, if forecasts were easy, I'd be a millionaire by now. But I would say, those two things you mentioned about savings, that's one of the things you mentioned was savings. The savings rate is lower than it was before the pandemic at 4.6%. I don't think it's going to go up anytime soon. If you look at the Federal Reserve, they're cutting interest rates, so there's lack of an incentive to save more and try to get interest on your putrid savings. The second part also is living paycheck to paycheck, as you mentioned. This is a huge issue. If you look at some of the data, real wage growth is still negative. It's down about 3 or 4% since the pandemic. Before we came on here, I came across this interesting statistic from the Bureau of Labor Statistics data, and it showed that the average weekly paycheck has jumped $171 since January 2021. But inflation has devoured all of that and more. So that means those paychecks buy $32 less per week, despite growing nearly 17%. And if you look at some of the recent also Bureau of Labor Statistics data, you see that wage growth has softened, starting to ease, but price pressures based on today's latest inflation report suggests it's going to be a challenge for the average person to claw back from that 20% inflation bomb that occurred a few years ago, on top of all the other things that have dramatically, risen. John will attest to this. Eggs have climbed 100%. Beef has climbed 30%. So all the essential items that the average person needs has just rocketed. So you're gonna have to have a period of deflation, which of course would be coupled with an economic downturn. So it's about balancing the risks.
You brought up the Fed's interest rate, and I'm going to throw it over to Graham on that one right there. What about interest rate cuts? Is that something that we can see immediately or not?
Well, I can tell you, Sarah, that the Federal Reserve has been cutting my personal interest rate for a very long time.
Please clap.
Okay. And over it once.
I like that. That was good. I like that.
But no, the thing about all this manipulation, and I think probably Andrew would agree with me on this, is that when you're using interest rates, whether you're raising them or lowering them in order to kind of manipulate, kind of the fiscal condition of the country, it's kind of the equivalent of robbing Peter to pay Paul. I mean, it's all about Band-Aids. As far as I understand it, interest rate increases are not now kind of on the horizon, but as Andrew has often pointed out, that's always a possibility. I'll leave it at this. The only answer to our massive fiscal quagmire that we're in is a massive shrinking of government, and therefore a massive shrinking of government spending. And then we wouldn't have to worry so much about where the interest rates are going.
There are two scenarios right now that the Fed has portrayed is like one or two are likely. First is that rates are coming down, though the pace is unknown. I mean, the pace, if you look at the summary of economic projections, it's about 3% in the next 2 years. The other scenario is that the Fed may pause rate cuts based on the economic outlook that would arise from the coming administration, based on tariffs and how that could be an inflationary aspect.
Oh, and that's a good point, Andrew. And I'm gonna, I've heard how, of course, social media, every side of the aisle, they're all freaking out about these tariffs. And I've read about how tariffs are inflationary. This is not my bailiwick, obviously. But Dave, is this something the public should be concerned about under a second Trump term?
Well, Sarah, at the risk of dog paddling in Andrew's swim lane, tariffs are not anything new. For Americans, as early as the mid-1700s, there was a set of regulations called the Townshend Acts, and it charged Americans import duties on glass and lead and paper and tea. And when Henry Clay of the Whig Party, which no longer exists, and men don't wear wigs, which may be the reason, but when he ran against James Polk, a Democrat, Clay was a staunch protectionist and believed that tariffs protected American goods from foreign competition. John Quincy Adams also signed a bunch of tariffs. But many in the 1900s were firm believers that tariffs were central to the American economy. And during Trump's first term, he famously applied tariffs on Chinese goods, and detractors complained loudly that inflation would skyrocket. But it didn't. And the inflation remained rather stable, and just under 2%. Generally, the goods on which the tariffs applied become more expensive, but at the same time, it prompts the consumers to buy American goods, which then become more competitive.
Do we make anything anymore? Do we make anything anymore? Do we just import everything?
Yeah, we do. I mean, manufacturing is actually on the rise, and it's the American purchasing power that drives the economy. I think that if you were to look at one thing, and I suspect that Andrew will agree, if you're looking at one thing that really does drive inflation, it's massive influxes of money and which were pretty much tied to the Biden administration's policy.
Okay, let's talk about immediate relief. And I've been talking about this, for 4 years, is that we need to produce our own energy. And I know John Clark and I are on the same page with this. The first thing to ease people back into a sigh of relief is going to be lower gas prices. And heating prices, Clark. Come on, help me out here. I'm pretty sure you agree with me.
Well, I'll help you out. Yeah, I'm tempted to disagree with you, but I'm going to have to agree with you. And President-elect Trump has said he intends to bring fuel prices down. Whether he can bring them all the way down to where they were a few years ago, I don't know, for the reasons we're discussing. There's inflation baked in. Part of the increase in fuel prices literally is inflation. And that's not a genie that goes quietly back into its bottle. And some of the things that are being discussed, as Graham said, if we're going to really impact that aspect of our economy, which is directly related to fuel prices, it's kind of a vicious cycle, then we do have to look at cutting spending, perhaps stimulating economic growth. That could be done through tax policies or otherwise, maybe not so much with tariffs, but we'll stay out of that those dangerous dogpiling waters right now. And, there are unforeseen things like, what if the conflict in Ukraine subsided? What if there was a new conflict in the Middle East where there are many choke points for fuels? But certainly this administration could reboot some of the leases that were terminated by the Biden administration in their war on oil, which they need oil, coal, and natural gas to build their renewables. So again, it's kind of a dog chasing its tail here. So I think that there's a tremendous amount that a new administration can do to actually bring down those energy costs, which then impact food, transportation, heat, everything else. And so it's very much entangled with the overall state of the economy and our economic health. And until we tackle that, because there's been a lot of gaslighting about inflation, it's going to continue to gnaw at energy prices and at our ability to get our economic feet back on the ground again.
Yeah, if I may just address a couple of things with my 45 seconds of time left, I would say that Trump's tariffs did have a price inflation aspect. The Cato Institute, they put together a comprehensive list of all the estimates that show that real wage growth fell, jobs were lost, and prices climbed as a result of the Trump tariffs. New estimates show pretty much the same thing. When it comes to energy, the main thing will not be so much about federal land management. It'll be also about price action. Prices will dictate whether oil companies are going to, accelerate production and drill, baby, drill. Break-even points range. If you look at regional central banks, it's about $55, $65. So I spoke to an oil executive the other day, and he said his break-even point could even be $25, and it will be all depend on prices.
Well, folks, I think this kind of sounds like a long slog. We've got to go. It's not going to happen on day one. Sounds promising to me and the C5 panel. Of course, we'll keep you in the loop. So thanks for tuning in, and thanks, panel, for a great discussion. Of all the departments in all of the U.S. government, I have an inkling that the Department of Education is shivering in its timbers now that Trump will return to the Resolute desk on January 20. His campaign pledge was clear: eliminate the Department of Education and put the states back in charge. So let's start this conversation with a question. Can he and should he do away with the Department of Ed? And I have a feeling, Dave, you might have some opinion on it.
Well, we have to remember that the Department of Education, although it was a fact-finding organization back in the mid-1800s, but as far as being an established cabinet-level organization, that took place in 1980. But a number of presidents, have seen the Department of Education as pretty much superfluous to government, and most recently, it's simply been an arm of the Progressive Teachers Union. It has become a propaganda machine, as way as most people see it, for all manner of, woke nonsense. The Department of Education has never been particularly popular with the states, and the department has a habit of putting conditions on taxpayer money when it's given back to the states that only drive state educational policies. And I think Trump has seen that as being very divisive and unproductive, especially when the federal government mandates a policy for the states, but doesn't give them any money to carry it out, and it has to come from within. It's just been an organization that has never actually lived up to its press releases. The 8-point plan, if number one, getting rid of the Department of Education, is possible, the other 7 don't matter. Also, we have to realize, too, that, getting rid of a department that was established through the legislature is going to have to be disestablished through the legislature. So if Trump is going to do this, he needs to get it done.
So, there's a lot of moving parts here. I don't know how you would even start with getting rid of the Department of Education. But Andrew, you have 2 children in school. They're in Canada. It's a whole different ball of wax. And from where you sit, what do you think about the elimination of the Department of Education here in the United States?
Well, I've followed the Department of Education for a long time. I've looked at all the data, and this whole top-down approach isn't working. And as Dave alluded to, it's become an extension of the woke teachers union. It's absolutely disgraceful. You mentioned earlier about the Trump's 8-point plan. One of them is a focus on eliminating the administration. If you look at the numbers over the years, let's say over the last 15 years, it's really fascinating. Student enrollment has been on the decline. New teachers joining the labor force has been flat. But the one area that has seen a dramatic increase has been, guess what? Administration. I think it's about 80% over the last 20 years. What the heck is that? How is that going to support your education? And it makes sense, too, of why it is not working. Look at the numbers. The U.S. spends $1 trillion a year on K-12 education. That's about $17,000 per pupil. The next highest country is Luxembourg. So the U.S., the only other country spending more than the U.S. is Luxembourg, between $22,000 and $27,000. Now, you look at the numbers of the results, which Clobber and Kelly Ballard did on the pages of LiberaNation.com, the U.S. is ranked 28 out of 37th of the OECD nations on math. In science, the U.S. is ranked 12th. So you're not getting you're getting a horrible return on your investment, and the only thing you're focusing on, are the 2F LGBTQIAP as opposed to the ABCs. It's absolutely disgraceful, the state of education, especially when the U.S. is one of the top of in the world before 1979 on providing kids the good education.
Professor John Clark, there are going to be hurdles to overcome to get this done. Who's going to squawk the loudest? And, what's going to be the big holdup?
Well, I think there are a bunch of dynamics here at play, and our speakers have alluded to some of them. One is that this is a creature of the legislature, so the Trump administration will ultimately have to go back to Congress to totally eliminate the Department of Education. And I think that's been hyperbole. I don't think there's a plan to actually completely eliminate it, but to maybe rein it in a little bit. We see teachers go on strike. At what point are we going to see parents and children going on strike? As Andrew's outlined, our nation's educational accomplishments in core skills are declining. The achievement gap has widened in direct proportionate to how much money we've given to the federal government to administer on behalf of the states. So it's kind of a states' rights issue. In fact, 9% of the U.S. budget for K through 12 goes through the Department of Education, and they control 90% of the regulatory oversight that they use to condition states to receive basically their own money back. As far as the unions complaining about is the creation of 1980, as Dave indicated, what was given can be taken away. The unions have demonstrated self-interest, ideological inclinations, and many parents are saying that this is a reason why our core reading and writing and other skills are declining across the nation. It seems like the more money we spend in some states like Vermont here, the poorer results we get. So in the end, a big part of this push is going to be to improve private education. I think it was in a meeting with Betsy DeVos, the term rocket fuel private schools will be done. And this is the opposite of what Vice President candidate Tim Walz wanted to do, where many states are shutting down or undermining private schools. So a big push for this will be to just allow states and parents and students to seek alternatives that actually function, because the larger the institution, it seems the more disappointing the outcome. And that's the broader theme, I think, of the administration is cutting down bureaucratic waste that's not benefiting Americans.
Graham, John Clark just made a really good point here when he says, when are the parents and the students going to go on strike? I think they did, and I think they have, and I think there's more people going into alternative instead of public schools, alternative classrooms, homeschools. Graham, what's going on there?
Well, yeah, this is true. I mean, it is a trend, and I think it's a trend that I would imagine probably most Democrats who are, because the Democratic Party is most closely aligned with the teachers' unions. The teachers' unions are, by the way, massive donors to Democratic Party, Democratic candidates. But anyway, the thing is, I believe Congress will never get rid of the Department of Education. There are too many even Republicans who wouldn't go down that road, and I'm not sure why, but if you want to...
Makes them feel kind of queasy.
Yeah, I mean, if they're just unnerved by the idea of having no Department of Education, what's that mean? There'll be no schools anymore? And that's and by the way, that's what a lot of left-wingers actually believe, that there will simply be no more schools if you get rid of the Department of Education. But here's the thing, that the way you kill that particular department is a two-pronged thing. And number one is that the Republicans in Congress and the man sitting behind the resolute desk in the Oval Office, they have to have the steel and they have to have the guts to squeeze the department financially and just say, no, we're not signing off on massive amounts of money for the Department of Education. And Trump should say, I'm not signing a bill that has massive amounts of money for that department in it. And then the other prong of that, apart from the financial squeeze, is very simply going back to what John said, is the striking, is basically the teachers, parents, and children simply refusing to comply and just going to get their education elsewhere. And that's how you get rid of the DOE, because otherwise it's here forever.
Well, I just don't see it happening, and I do think that they could run it a lot better. It's kind of run like PBS. It's just out there doing nothing that important and slowly trickling through the system. Anyway, I wish Donald Trump good luck on that endeavor. I don't believe he'll get her done. I do think, however, we may be able to trim it down and we can hang on to some of our budget. But there's lots of news and moving parts as we barrel into the last weeks of this year. And as Trump fleshes out this administration, we will be here to explain who they are and why they are here. Thanks for watching, and thanks, panel. We are back to have a little fun with the panel post-election. So let's get a little crazy, loosen up after that ride. It was a tough one. Andrew Moran, our economic comic, is running the board. Take it away, our Canadian friend.
Thank you, Ms. Calgo. Thank you. So it's been quite a week, hasn't it? It's been raining a lot of tears in America this last week. Jimmy Kimmel cried. Stephen Colbert held back tears. John Dickerson of CBS News cried on Stephen Colbert's show. At this rate, I wouldn't be surprised if Noah's Ark made a comeback. Meanwhile, the View hosts have apparently lost their rights on election night, though they were unsure what rights were lost and didn't realize there has been no transition yet. Oh, and nobody has moved to Canada yet. They took one look at Justin Trudeau's record and went, ooh, yikes. Anyway, now on to the C5 trivia. We have our beautiful and healthy and intelligent guests. And then we have John Clark, of course. I'm only kidding, John. I love you. You're the man. Except that red shirt. So let's get started with C5 trivia.
It's kind of fancy.
Respect. Questions and answers first, and then chime with your terrific answers. So, question.
Yes, we have been given an edict that people like to play this game, and they would like us to give it a second before everybody starts barking out answers. Let's just
Hey.
follow the rules.
Hey,
Heard the message. I'm like Bill Clinton. I heard you loud and clear.
All right, so question number 1. What event did White House economist Jared Bernstein blame for the unsatisfactory October jobs report? Was it the 2024 election, Hurricanes Helene and Milton, or the U.S. port strike?
B.
I think Dave answered that correct. So yes, it is B. However, I would say, because I wrote this article, he actually blamed the hurricanes as well as a labor dispute that occurred between Boeing and also the port workers. Sorry, that goes to Dave.
When you say yes, Dave got that right. Read the answer.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Okay. See, my boss is telling me how to run just for fun. I think she should be running just for fun.
My boss was telling me that we have to run it this way, so it's just trickle down.
Okay. So, question number 2. Who faced off? Oh, I think Graham will definitely get this one because he did excellent coverage of election night. So, question 2. Who faced off against incumbent Democratic Senator Tammy Baldwin in Wisconsin? Was it Eric Hovde, Bernie Moreno, or Tim Sheehy?
A.
Eric Hovde.
Yes. Eric Hovde is the correct answer. Dave is on the board with 2 points. No surprise. Question number 3. Avoiding pollster calls, emails, and text messages and deciding not to display yard signs of your favorite candidate could signify that you are a non-voter, a shy voter, or a Kamala Harris fan.
B.
High voter.
B.
Okay, I'm going to say Dave got that with the answer B, shy voter. Okay, question number 4. What type of vehicle appeared 6 times in the Consumer Reports Top 10 Cars for 2024? Was it gas-powered, electric, or hybrid?
C. Hybrid.
Yes, Dave gets it again. It is hybrid. That has actually become a very popular car with U.S. consumers as of late.
Now, probably because nobody wants to be in the middle of nowhere when their battery runs out of a charge.
And you can read more on this on my article called Ford Struggles Prove EVs Are Hurting Automakers. Anyway, question number 5. Earlier this year, 43 Republicans led by blank tried to oust House Speaker Mike Johnson. Was it Steve Scalise, Gary Palmer, or Marjorie Taylor Greene, also known as TG?
C.
Marjorie Taylor Greene.
B.
Oh my goodness. Can we just mute Dave? Can we just mute him?
I got that one. C.
Well, some of us are saying it at the same time as him, but you choose him as the winner every time.
Awarding Dave. Like, are you afraid of him or something?
Dave's just the least shy trivia voter.
Andrew, I guess that 20 was worthwhile.
A. Where'd Andrew go?
Question number 6, I believe. Who was the last presidential candidate to be endorsed by the Wall Street Journal? In 1928, Dwight D. Eisenhower in 1952, or Jimmy Carter in 1980?
Herbert Hoover.
Carter.
Dave does it again. Yes, Herbert Hoover in 1920. Oh boy, come on, John, say something, man.
Jeez. John and I are going to go have a beer.
I can't win. I told you I'm a shy trivia voter. Still, I'm not putting my Trivia Lawn sign out. But I agree. I have answered a couple, but you go ahead and pick Dave anyway. I don't know what your deal is.
No, it's Dave.
Hey, give him a 20 before you start. Okay? It's the American way.
We're going to go to hand panels after this.
$20 is about 28 Canadian dollars.
There you go. See? I'm helping you out.
Okay, question 7. In what state did Donald Trump win by 9 points in 2016, just under 6 points in 2020, and 14 points in 2024? Was it Georgia, Florida, or Texas?
Hey.
Oh my goodness, Brickman, yes. Texas.
Well, I waited till somebody else would.
B. Oh, you people.
Well, Texas, C was Texas, actually, so was Arizona. Yeah. And you can actually read more of this in the article, 2024 Winner, The Rise and Rise of Donald Trump. All right, next question here. Other than Donald Trump, The only other president in U.S. history to win 2 terms non-consecutively is, come on, guys, no Dave, no. Grover Cleveland, Harrison, or William McKinley.
Hey,
Cleveland.
Cleveland.
Dave got that first, correct, everyone?
No, he didn't have what? Well, I am calling the boss on this one. Andrew's cheating. Andrew finds a way to cheat even when he's not playing.
I'm not even participating. I'm not a contestant. Oh, here's a great article. Okay, this article is from my article. This question is from my article. Federal Reserve prepares for battle against Trump. So the question is, though their relationship has been rocky, Donald Trump agreed to allow U.S. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell to complete his tenure, which expires in 2025, 2026, or 2027.
2026.
Oh my!
Oh, where are you, Dave? Where are you?
25.
I think you got it right. Or
That is correct. 26. And
Give up. Give up.
but everyone,
You gotta have a glass of wine. Thanks for watching.
At his post-meeting press conference, he was asked point blank, would he resign if Trump asked him to? He said no. And then there was a follow-up. What if Trump fired you? He said, not permitted under the law. And this
Doesn't have to go anywhere.
being the most powerful institution in the world. So all these questions are brought to you by the terrific, great, wonderful Kirsten Brooker. Now back to you, Miss Sarah Cowgill.
No. Okay, well, I lose again. So thanks for playing. I hope you guys out there watching did so much better than I did. And I hope we left you with more smiles and less confusion than we have. Thanks for watching. Thanks, panel. Thanks, Andrew. You are so weird. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform, YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble. We're on them all. As well, Liberty Nation News has its own Roku channel where you can see all of our TV productions. Now, Liberty Nation does not endorse candidates, campaigns, or legislation, and this presentation is no endorsement. I'm your host, Sarah Cowgill. Thanks for joining us today for the latest news and commentary. Your choice for free thinking, free speech, libertynation.com.